What's going on, guys? Welcome to Fight Night. I am here with my boy KevDog Emperor G. My buddy, how you doing?
Hey, happy and healthy. I'm so ecstatic to be here. I say it every week, but truly so passionate about UFC, man, and love breaking down this show. Of course, we had a fantastic card last week, main event, pay-per-view, all that good jazz. But, man, can't wait to hop in this card and make it rain once again.
Yeah, I mean, we got another good one on our hands. Finally back at the Apex. Seems like it's been a long time since we've been there. And I don't know about you, but I love that small octagon. I love getting those finishes in. The finish rate is obviously higher there than in the bigger octagon. And, before we get into that, we do have a little surprise for our people here. We do want to introduce our third host of Fight Night, one of the OGs of the Fight Night group in the Knights of Degen Discord, our guy, Dan, a.k.a. Jiu-Jitsu Dan. Here we go.
What's up, boys?
There he is.
Oh, man. What's happening? What's happening?
Man, it's a long time coming for sure. Excited to be here with you guys.
Indeed, man. We bounce off so many ideas, whether it's in the Discord and, in the Twitter spaces. This is the first day that, Matt and I put a name to a face. So, we're super excited to, solidify this trio. And, man, it's only up from here, man. We just can't wait for the future.
Yeah, welcome, man. I mean, you're one of the OGs of the space here, right? In the Knights of Degen Discord. Obviously from the get-go, we would have loved to have you, but it's great to have you back here on normal time. We know you were away in Israel for a little bit there, but we're happy to have you and happy to have you here full time going forward.
Yeah, man. Great. It's crazy because I remember like being the only one posting in the Fight Night channel when KOD first kicked off, and it's crazy to see how far it's come, So, hopefully from here we just keep building.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, and I don't want to waste any more time because we have some good fights to get to here, and especially this first one that's leading off the main card. I mean, we have the OG Michael Johnson going against Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey is actually pretty overwhelming favorite here. I know the line has surprised some. Right now, I think he's sitting at minus 230, minus 225, and Michael Johnson comeback is plus 195. And before we get into this, I just want to add that this is only the fourth time that Michael Johnson has been a betting underdog since 2013. Wow. And that's over the course of 15 fights. The only fights he was the underdog in was against Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Dustin Poirier and against prime Edson Barboza. And he was the favorite against guys like Beneil Dariush, Justin Gaethje, Josh Emmett, he was a favorite over. So it's pretty surprising to see him in this underdog role here. I mean, he is 9 years the elder over Mullarkey. And at age 36, he made his return to the octagon just a few months ago. He looked pretty sharp, earning himself a second-round knockout victory there. So just wanted to throw that out there heading into this one because it's pretty surprising to see him as almost a 2-1 dog.
Yeah, this line is really – honestly, it's kind of confusing to me, man, because – I mean, we just saw Mullarkey get his ass knocked out just 3.5, 4 months ago, right? And that's a huge red flag. I don't care if it's the best or worst fighter in the UFC. Like, if you're getting knocked out like that and you're coming back 3.5 months, it's got to raise the red flag. Just given the sense, obviously, he's more susceptible, one, but two, you got to expect him coming out a little bit hesitant here, right? I mean, you get knocked out like that on that type of stage, you got to be cautious. And versus a guy in Michael Johnson, man, I understand he's very one-dimensional. I understand that he's fragile, but there's no doubt that his boxing is the name of his game, right? I mean, he's got very fast hands, and I think he still packs a punch, even at 36 years old. It's his 25th, 26th UFC fight. So, he's coming in extremely experienced. But man, it's just one of those things where, you got a guy Mullarkey who, I don't think I've seen enough out of this guy for we can all say, okay, he's a minus 230, minus 240 guy. I mean, he's extremely chinny. He's got that big noggin. I think he's there to be hit. Unless he's able to take this to the mat. If this is a strictly boxing match, I think Johnson walks over this man. Dan, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, interesting fight. I mean, truth be told, guys, I think this is like the telltale kind of storybook fight for Michael Johnson, and we kind of see how this is really the perfect fight for him to lose. That's the way that I see it. I think that he came off a nice win, and I actually had him in his last fight against Alan Patrick. The guy had lost, I think, 5 in a row, took some time off. He came back. You could tell that he really, really wanted that one, and I was actually happy to see him win. But I think when you get with the guy in Malarkey is a super durable guy that's not going to fade. And Kev, you mentioned kind of getting knocked out his last fight. I mean, he got knocked out by Jalen Turner. We all saw what Jalen Turner did on Saturday, man. The guy is no joke. He's a top 10 guy. So I don't really see that loss as something too dramatic. I mean, Johnson has great hands, really, really fast and crisp boxing. I think his path to victory here is really like a sprawl and brawl type approach. But, in true Michael Johnson fashion, I think he's going to choke this one, guys. I actually like Malarkey here by a late submission. If there's one thing we've seen about Johnson is that the guy is a choker. He loses when he should win. And I think here, you mentioned he hasn't been an underdog very often, but I think a guy like Malarkey is going to have something to prove coming off that loss to Turner. And I think a lot of people are going to read too much into Johnson's last win, personally.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said, Dan. And it's funny because I like Malarkey in this spot too. Obviously, the last fight's against a guy in Jalen Turner where, Malarkey, he's at a disadvantage in the size, he's at a disadvantage in the speed, he's at a disadvantage on the ground. So basically everywhere the fight could go, Turner had the advantage in that one. Whereas in this one, I think Malarkey has a huge physicality advantage against Michael Johnson. And I think Michael Johnson's counter game isn't going to fare well against someone like Malarkey because he'll be able to dictate where this fight goes. He utilizes a lot of feints, a lot of level changes. He likes to stay on the outside. And, he can get those takedowns too. I think I saw he averages over like 3 takedowns per 15. And, he's not a high volume guy, but he picks his shots. And when he does hit you, he packs a pretty good punch, And I don't think that Johnson's at a huge speed advantage here with the hands. I mean, obviously that's his forte, but I just think Malarkey has a lot to offer here. I think if he gets us in the clinch, he's at a huge advantage there just due to being the bigger guy. Like I said, I think his physicality is his best attribute in this matchup here. And I'm with you, too. I actually have it circled. They have this sub-prop at plus 600, which I thought was pretty crazy high, especially against a guy in Michael Johnson. I think he's been sub 9 times throughout his professional career, 5 times in the UFC. And, after a loss like Malarkey just suffered, you see it time and time again, these guys go to their bread and butter. And the guy's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, right? And Michael Johnson, clear disadvantage on the ground. If Malarkey even gets clipped, who's to say he doesn't take it to the ground? We've seen how quick he could take someone's back as well. And, I just think that he has a lot of positives on his side here. I think for Michael Johnson, he needs to get Malarkey on his back foot, right? I don't think that he could allow Malarkey to bring the fight to him to have success. And, that was a big win for Johnson his last time out. He did look crisp, but he was going against a guy in Alan Patrick who really is a grappler and for whatever reason decided to stand with him the entire fight. And, I do understand the narrative that Michael Johnson being a 2-1 underdog, the line could be a little bit off, but when you have as many advantages as Malarkey does in the matchup with, multiple paths to victory as well, it kind of justifies the line a little bit there.
Yeah. And I think my biggest concern with Malarkey, obviously there's that KO, but I feel as though that he's extremely hittable. I mean, he's absorbing like well over 5 strikes a minute. And a guy in Johnson, man, like if he's starting to tee off and gets in a groove, I mean, I understand he's 36, but you already know with all the experience and all that good jazz, man, those hands, I mean, they can be unleashed in this spot. And I think this is just a matter of timing, right? Like if Malarkey can get this to the mat, around the midway first round, I think he's in good shape. But if he wants to just stay on the feet the entire first round, I mean, he could be going into that second round somewhat compromised. Honestly, I firmly believe it. And on the other side, man, I can also envision a way where Johnson loses this fight and he leaves his gloves in the cage after this one and he calls it quits. I could totally see it where this is kind of his retirement fight. But Yeah, no, this is a really interesting matchup, and I think it's more of like a statement for Malarkey to get back on the map after that pretty brutal KO last time out.
Yeah, and obviously the puzzle here is way different than the one with Jalen Turner. I mean, Michael Johnson, one path to victory for the most part. Jalen Turner, just like I said, dominated this one everywhere.
100%. 100%. You guys have anything else on this one? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, Johnson, he's just that one-dimensional striker who's going to try and knock you out, try and defend that takedown. But, yeah, no, I think Malarkey at the end of the day probably has many more paths to victory here.
Yeah, agreed. The only thing I'll jump in and say is that I think Malarkey just at this price is a little bit steep. So I think I like him as a good parlay piece, but it's tough to make money on a fight like this with the odds where they are now.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So that's why if I'm betting this one, I'm going to take a stab at Malarkey by sub at 6-1. I'm going to lay, a lot less than I would on Malarkey straight up to win probably more than I would. So 6-1 there. That's going to be my bet on this fight.
Real quick, so the over 2.5 is plus 140, which is kind of interesting in a sense because again, you've got to think that Malarkey at least early is going to stay hesitant. I don't think that he's going to be aggressive by any means. So like if he can stay clear of that knockout and just stays cautious throughout, I mean, I could potentially see this go in the distance if Johnson doesn't clip him here, but I believe that a Michael Johnson finish is actually more likely than a Malarkey finish in this spot. Just given that Malarkey's last time out. How that portrayed out, getting knocked out. I mean, it's just history repeating itself, right? Like we kind of see that where fighters just come in a little bit more, just cautious of what to expect coming at them. So, yeah, no, going to be a fun one. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Michael Johnson retirement fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'll disagree with you saying that Malarkey is more likely to get finished than Johnson just based off Johnson's history and the amount of times he's been finished, right? So, respectfully disagree there. But if we don't have anything else to add here, we can move on to this next one. And, this is a fight where it's like the UFC, at least they're consistent, right? They just need a heavyweight fight on the main card, regardless of who's going in there. It's a total slop fest. And, here we have Jared Vanderaa going against Chase Sherman, two guys who, you could argue neither one should be in the UFC. Vanderaa is an overwhelming favorite. I know it surprised a lot of people at minus 195. Come back on Chase Sherman at plus 165. Over 2.5 is sitting at plus 130 with the under at minus 160. Fight goes the distance plus 165. Fight does not go the distance, sitting at minus 225. Dan, you want to lead us off on this one? Really ugly fight.
You said it, man. Yeah. I don't have like a super strong take on this one outside of the fact that Chase Sherman is on my blacklist. I'll never bet on this guy ever. He's he's a quitter. He has some stand up, but I think, especially if he gets put on his back, the guy's like a turtle. Vanderaa, his last fight out against Oleinik kind of was a bit of a head scratcher. Like the guy tried to grapple Oleinik, and I just didn't understand what he was trying to do there. Like as soon as he was trying to take Oleinik's back, I was like, oh, this is over. Like he's playing right into his hands. But outside that, Vanderaa been, he's fought some tough guys in there, right? Romanov, went to a split decision with Arlovsky. He beat a tough Justin Tafa, which, if I look in the last 5, who Sherman has beat and who Vanderaa beat, I'll take Justin Tafa over like a TKO win over Ike Villanueva. You know what I mean? So it's a tough fight to call, but I'm on the Vanderaa side here. I actually think he could finish Sherman pretty easily, especially if he gets a takedown. I really think that Sherman has nothing to offer on the ground. And I think, again, Sherman has some quit in him, quite a bit of quit in him. So I think we can be in for an early one if Vanderaa can take him down, and I think we can actually see a sub here.
Yeah, no, I mean this fight is the definition of just so sloppy, right? I mean, both these guys very low fight IQ, just no true future in the UFC, right? I mean, for God's sake, Sherman was cut from the UFC. Romanov needed a fight at one point in time, and Sherman raised his hand, "Hey, I'm the sacrificial lamb," and got his ass beat. But this is just so weird because, Sherman, he's 3-9 in the UFC. Vanderaa is like 1-3, I believe. And There's really nothing that pops out that any of these guys brings to the table. I was looking at the props, and there's one that I might flirt with, and that's a Vandera by sub at 7-1. I know you guys saw that video of Vandera talking to Olynyk backstage after he got choked out, and God, I had this sense that like he not only took a lot from that, but has like a really hidden submission game. And like you said, Dan, if Sherman gets dropped or Vandera lands a takedown, like Sherman is not getting up. Like it's just non-existent, And I feel as though if Vandera is on top on the ground, I feel as though the submission is more live than a ground and pound. Like just Vandera's style, kind of what he brings to the table. And at 7-1, I might flirt with it. We'll see. But at the same time, I do worry slightly when you have a guy in Sherman, although he's 3-9 in the UFC, although he's been cut and he's been on this massive losing streak. You've got to think that the man, after he got his ass beat, has this chip on his shoulder, right? Like you just got cut in the UFC, you still have this opportunity. I mean, if Vandera gets knocked out here by Sherman, I really wouldn't be surprised at all. Just because Sherman, that it's just that's a psychology thing, right? Like you get cut from the UFC and you have another chance, man. I mean, you've got to think that he's got nothing to lose and he's going to come out slinging. So, and I don't think Vandera has necessarily the greatest, defense on the feet. So, I think that there'll be a finish. It'll definitely be a sloppy one. Matt, what's your take on this fight? Any leans? What do you got for us?
Yeah, so I mean, just to make note of it, Vandera is on 2 weeks' notice for this one. He took this fight on short notice, and it's kind of been the theme of his UFC career thus far. He keeps taking fights on short notice. I think the Olynyk fight as well, he took that one on short notice. Obviously, I think he took a Romanov fight on short notice, but he's fought like really tough competition in the UFC thus far. The guy made his debut against Sergey Spivak, then he fought Romanov, like I said, he got the win over Tafa, fought Arlovsky to a split decision. I thought he won that one. I mean, obviously, it's not a robbery by any means. Mm-hmm. I also had Vandera in that fight, so that's why I think he won that one. And then, obviously, he took the Olynyk fight on short notice too. And, it's an old saying with the UFC, he looked good until he didn't in that one. And it was just a series of mistakes that he made that ultimately, took away the win from him and gave it to Olynyk there. But one thing I'm taking note of here is, Vandera is a huge heavyweight. He cuts to make 265, whereas Chase Sherman, he weighs in the 250 almost consistently at this weight class. And for someone in Sherman who has such bad, ground game, and Vandera, for what it's worth, he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know a lot of people question the severity and, if it's a true black belt or not. But, he is a black belt, and I think that if he gets on top of Sherman, it's just, game over like we've seen the last 2 times for Sherman. The guy just has no get-up game. It almost like he doesn't even try once he gets taken down. He kind of, like you said, Dan, just turtles up on the bottom. And, the one thing about these two is they got a lot of finishes outside the UFC, right? But once they made their way in, basically no finish. I mean, Vandera has 0 finishes in the UFC. And I think you said, Kev, that Sherman's fought 12 times in the UFC. He only has 2 finishes in those 12 fights. So, both guys do get finished, though. I mean, Vandera's been finished, I think, in 67% of his fights, whereas Sherman's been finished in 60% of his losses, And it's hard to see how this one plays out, right? Because you would like to think that Vandera does grapple, does take this one to the mat. But, similar to Sean Strickland last week, we all thought that was his path to victory. What he do? He chose to stand with him, right? And it happens time and time again. Vandera should have grappled with an Arlovsky. He wound up grappling with Olynyk instead. It just, some of these decisions just make no sense. But, I think that Vandera does a good job of staying on the outside when he strikes, picking his shots. He's a pretty decent striker. I don't think he's bad. I think he's very durable too. We've seen him take big shots. We've seen him get that big cut against Tafa. And he's still, I think, won a 30-27 in that one. But I think I'm looking at the over in this one a little bit, just because both these guys, they might played a little bit safe knowing that, Vandera's on that losing skid and Sherman just got re-signed, and you don't know if that contract's going to hold up or not. And I just don't see a finish really coming out unless Vandera decides to grapple, gets on top of him and ground and pounds him, similar to his Contender Series fight against Hunsucker. I mean, similar level of competition there, but I just don't see it. I feel like this one stays standing. Neither one really has crazy power. I mean, obviously Sherman has 14 knockouts in his 15 wins, but like I said, it just hasn't translated over to the UFC. And I think that if Vandera could keep his distance in this one, he might point fight similar to that Arlovsky fight, but I don't think as much is going to be coming back in his way. So I'm probably going to take a stab at Vandeira by decision at plus 300 here. I think it's a much better number to get than laying the minus 200 on him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I mean, even though the knockouts haven't translated to the UFC, I mean, I think it is still worth noting that, you know, out of the 15 wins of Sherman, I mean, 14 are by knockout. Like that's a ridiculous percentage. But like you said, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that it's really translated to the UFC very well. And yeah, I mean, this is just a very low level heavyweight matchup here, guys. I mean, you know, Vandeira is going to definitely have the size advantage, like you said, Matt. And yeah, I mean, this will be interesting if, you know, my gut is telling me that both these guys really have nothing to lose. I mean, the loser of this fight is probably getting cut from the UFC, which is my reasoning is why I think this fight, there's going to be violence, man. I just think that both these guys, again, they're going to sling, they're going to do what they got to do. But I don't think this is a spot where either of these guys want to stay cautious or patient, right? Because again, they're fighting for their job here, right? Like if you're fighting in the UFC, like you got to make a statement. And, yeah, I mean, it's also one of those things where, like, let's say Sherman somehow squeezed out a decision, right? Like, does the UFC still keep this man? You know, like because he's already been cut by the UFC, and if it's just like a sloppy, you know, it'll be interesting to see what Dana does here. But yeah, nothing to really offer in regard to the handicapping side of it. But yeah, no, I mean, both these guys arguably could be some of the worst guys in the heavyweight division by all means. But Dan, any other looks on this fight, man? I mean. There's really not much to it, but
yeah, no, it's not definitely not one of the fights that I'm circling on this card. I like the Vandeira side, but I don't love it. The only path to victory is a TKO. I don't see him winning a decision. I definitely don't see him getting a submission. So, you know, that's it. I mean, as of right now, it's a no bet for me, but we'll see closer to fight. I may slap something down on that submission prop for Vandeira.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, as the days go by and then we have that Twitter space on Saturday, like there are times where like certain fight, they just come more to life, right? Like the more we talk about it. And yeah, no, I totally feel you on that. Matt, you got anything else on this one or?
Yeah, I'm also targeting the over 1.5 here at minus 160. I don't think it's a bad price to pay here because, like I said, both these guys, they haven't necessarily gotten the finishes and just the style of the two, you know, if they're going to stay on the outside and trade, I don't see much danger for either one. And if Vandeira decides to grapple, gets on top, you know, perhaps Sherman, you know, turtles up and survives long enough over to hit. But at minus 160, I think it's a decent number to get here.
Yeah, I don't think that's too terrible. Like, as long as Vandeira doesn't somehow get this to the mat in the first round, you know, I don't really foresee Sherman just knocking Vandeira out of the blue. But
yeah. And by saying that too, you know, in the last fight of Sherman's against Romanov, I had the over 1/2 round.
I think I remember that.
You had to go. It busted my parlay because I think he got finished with like 20 seconds to go before that over hit. So it's always troubling getting Sherman in an over. So just based off his lack of durability. So it's definitely going to be a sweaty one. But if you guys have nothing left to offer, I'd love to get off this fight more than anything. I can't wait to not talk about it anymore. But, you know, coming up into this next one, we have Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Said Nurmagomedov. Said Nurmagomedov minus 320. Comeback on Silva de Andrade plus 265. Silva de Andrade, 37 years old. We saw him coming off a big KO win over Sergey Morozov, right? Is that correct? And, you know, he looked bad in that fight until, you know, he clipped Morozov in that second round and wound up getting it. I know he was bleeding plenty. And then Nurmagomedov coming off a quick 47-second submission over Cody Stamann, one of the more durable guys in the division. And just to make note of it, Silva de Andrade, he's bounced around between featherweight and bantamweight throughout his UFC career, and he's coming back down to bantamweight in this fight where, you know, his takedown defense is actually better up at featherweight. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Kev, if you have any leads on this one, take the reins.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, Silva de Andrade, he's 28-4. Like, you know, I mean, you have a record like that. I don't care who you are. Like, it's worth, you know, noting, right? Like, this guy is a winner. I love what I saw in his last fight, the way he got absolutely cracked in the first round by Morozov and was able to overcome those deep waters and come back. I mean, that's what you want to see. But, I mean, let's be real, boys. To bet against a Nurmagomedov, whether you're related to the Khabib or not, it is a massive risk that you're going to take. I mean, the diversity of striking that Nurmagomedov brings to the table is a thing of art, you know, just the way he's able to include the knockouts, the submissions, the kicks, the punches, the swinging this, the spinning that. The guy's a dog, man. He loves to stay on the outside and just kind of pick his shots. I do think that Silva de Andrade does pack a punch, man. I mean, look at the guy. They were saying in his previous fight, he dropped like 40 pounds, like in like 3 months. I think it was like 48 pounds in 3 months for his previous fight. So, I mean, look, you can just say by the eye test, right? I mean, de Andrade, I mean, there's no reason that we can overlook this guy, right? I mean, he can definitely pack a punch. Like 28 wins, 20 by knockout. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? And like you said, man, he's at bantamweight. I think he's 2-0 at the bantamweight division in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's 3-2 at bantamweight.
3-2. Okay, so, but yeah, no, I mean, I think de Andrade, in regards to his takedown defense, he'll be able to stuff that. I think at 68%, but. Nurmagomedov, it's such a interesting style, right? Like you would think on paper, he's that typical, Dagestani wrestler, grindy, gritty, just kind of grinds you out over 15 minutes. But that's just not who he is, man. Nurmagomedov is this type of Nurmagomedov he's a striker. He's a sniper too. Like, man, he's so exciting. I love to watch this man fight. It'll be really interesting if he can overcome this test. But Dan, what are your thoughts on this one? Any leans? The line is obviously extremely wide, but
yeah,
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think your analysis of Nurmagomedov is spot on, right? You see that last name and you think, he's going to wrestle, and no, it's quite the opposite. The guy has great striking, and we saw what Morozov was able to do to de Andrade in the first round of their last fight. Man, that fight gave me nightmares because I remember. I had Morozov, and I thought it was going to be over quick, and then you just saw de Andrade completely expose Morozov. And we saw also in Morozov's last fight, I think he fought not last week, the card before that. The guy is a little bit shaky, so I think the book is kind of out on him, and that's due to de Andrade. Tough guy, heavy hands, good jiu-jitsu, but I think Nurmagomedov is just going to be too crisp. I actually think he's going to finish him. And finish him early here. Just seeing as how Morozov was able to clip him early in that fight, I think Nurmagomedov is going to be a little bit more disciplined and not give de Andrade the opportunity to get back into the fight. So I lean Nurmagomedov. I think it's a great parlay piece. I don't know what fight to not go the distance is, but I think that's actually a great bet as well if it's under like -200.
It's -175.
Yeah, I like that. I think I see like around round 1 or round 2 TKO from Nurmagomedov here. Truth be told, I think he's going to be someone to watch in the division. And de Andrade is going to be a good test for him because if you look at his record, the guy has fought a lot of tough guys. I mean, look at his losses, right? Rob Font, Peter Yan, Eroy Murphy, all really tough guys,
With a win over Chito Vera.
He has a win over Chito Vera, yeah. The guy is tough, but again, he's getting up there in age, and I think Nurmagomedov is part of that, that new breed, right? So I think he's gonna be better. I really think he has the advantage everywhere in this fight, truth be told, especially on the feet, though. Like, again, if Morozov was able to light him up early in the last fight, I think Nurmagomedov should be able to hit his chin pretty easily.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he also has a big advantage on the ground, too, because Silva de Andrade, you think, Brazilian guy like that, he's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he isn't. He really has no Jiu-Jitsu credentials, which is pretty surprising to me. And we saw the way that Nurmagomedov transitioned and got that sub against Stamen his last time out, which was highly impressive. Especially when you consider Stamen has no neck, right? So he somehow found the neck there and got it done. But, I'm happy you both said he's not a grappler because in my notes I have not a grappler like the name suggests. So it's pretty spot on from all three of us here. But, interesting about Silva de Andrade is that, normally the books line him correctly. I mean, when he's an underdog of +200 or more, he's 1-3. And he's been an underdog in all 4 of his losses in the UFC. So, for the most part, when the Vegas says that Silva de Andrade is going to lose, he does, right? And, against a guy like Nurmagomedov, who is growing, he had that big gap in, fights between the last time out. There is a little concern that, he came back, he only had 47 seconds in the octagon, didn't get to get much work in. It's crazy to think that, getting a quick finish like that is not good for him. But, some people could argue that, you want more time in there to, refine your skills, make sure that everything you've been working on in the gym the past few years is paying off, and you could rely on it when the water's deep, right? And like I mentioned before, Silva de Andrade's takedown defense is worse at bantamweight at 64% opposed to 78% at featherweight. And Kev, you mentioned how much weight he cut to make featherweight last time out. So at 37-year-old, making that cut down to bantamweight, that's going to take a toll on him. It's going to wear on his durability. It kind of points to Dan's point about, Nurmagomedov likely getting a finish here. And when it comes to numbers and volume, Nurmagomedov, he lands about 1 strike more per minute than Silva de Andrade does, which obviously lends itself well to the decision with the judges. And, I just think it's an interesting matchup because, like you guys both said, Silva de Andrade has that one-punch knockout power. I mean, we saw it his last time out, but Nurmagomedov doesn't really get himself into those situations too often. And, I just think that there is a chance that Silva de Andrade is a little more cautious after his war last time out with Morozov. I know in an interview this week, he said, his game plan's simple. It's either knock out or get knocked out, right? So it could be a way of playing telephone here where he's trying to relay that message and then come out a little more cautious. But, who knows? I definitely think Nurmagomedov has the advantage here. Like you said, everywhere at minus 320. It is pretty steep. It's a lot bigger than the lines we're used to seeing Nurmagomedov at. But, the guy was minus 200 against Stamen, which, is saying something in itself. So hard to bet when the line's this wide. I agree with you, Dan, that it's a good parlay piece. You can throw it in with something else. But when it comes to straight bets, I don't really have anything in this one.
Yeah. And Douglas Silva Andrade, he's obviously lower volume on the feet, and he loves to throw those those leg kicks, those outside leg kicks, those inside leg kicks. But versus a guy in Nurmagomedov who stays outside, on the outside, that leg kick is not going to be there. You're going to see so many times where he's going to try and use that and he just completely whiffs it. And that brings me to my next point. Douglas Silva Andrade, man, he's just, I don't look at his striking as someone that's super accurate. I think his accuracy striking is 40 some percent, low 40s, maybe even the high 30s. So, I mean, he's really got to connect on Nurmagomedov if he wants a chance here. But yeah, no, it just seems like Nurmagomedov is just going to be one step ahead in every facet of this matchup. And I love a finish in this spot here. Really curious what the finish is, by sub/submission. Is it at plus money or is it?
I'm sure it is because the under is at minus 135. So probably getting a finish under Nurmagomedov's side is going to be something a little over even, I'd have to imagine. But, similar to your point, though, being that Nurmagomedov's the bigger guy in this fight, it's going to be up to De Andrade to close that distance. And he's not too technical, right? So in order to do that, he's going to have to get a little bit wild. And we've seen Nurmagomedov. He has a really good check hook. I mean, I forget who he finished with it, but he has a good boxing game from inside. He has those spinning attacks, too, which could be very dangerous. And, like I said, he just more versatile everywhere.
Yeah. I'm looking at the round 2 prop is plus 450, round 3 plus 900 for Nurmagomedov to finish inside the distance, which isn't a terrible look. I don't know. I don't think Nurmagomedov is going to knock him out in the first round. I mean, Douglas Silva Andrade, he's so incredibly tough. I mean, we saw him last time out how he got literally knocked down. Was on his Morozov was on top of him, and De Andrade was eating elbows. I mean, he was so busted up, but there was just no quitting the man. I mean, unless Nurmagomedov finds a way to flatline Douglas Silva Andrade, it'll be really tough to put him away in the first round. Just that gut feeling. But really excited where this Nurmagomedov guy is going to go, right? Because he's not even related to Khabib, but he has that last name, which is just such a scary thing. It's going to be interesting, where his trajectory goes. And man, we've got a few Nurmagomedovs in the UFC that, are on the uprise. So really interesting, where it's going to be, 24 to 36 months from now, where all these Nurmagomedovs are going to be. And if any of these guys are even going to take a loss and by who, because you got to imagine at some point they're going to start getting that cream of the crop of the division. So can't wait, can't wait for this fight, and looking forward to these next 2 fights on this card.
Yeah, and it sucks for us that he has that last name, right? Or else we'd be getting him at a premium at minus 200 maybe. But just even though he's not related with the last name Nurmagomedov, those lines are always going to be juiced. So just sucks for us, right? But, I could see a club and sub coming in this one. I think that's a very likely outcome.
Absolutely. If you guys don't have anything else, Matt, you want to kick us off to this awesome commercial that we have of KOD Media?
Yeah, I mean, of course. How could we not? I mean, KOD Media with our guy Jigga behind the scenes producing all this content for the KOD brand. The guy's unstoppable. He just doesn't stop. He's here with us. He's doing 2 shows at once. He's got Yankees Morning Brew. He's got What's the Show? It's everything with this guy. So, Jigga, you're the man. check out this KOD Media commercial coming up. And we are back, baby. We're here to talk about this co-main event. Interesting here, Caio Borralho got a second co-main event in 2 UFC fights so far, and he's going against Armen Petrosyan here. Caio Borralho opened up at -145. We're now seeing him at -225. Comeback on Petrosyan, +190. Pretty interesting stat here. Petrosyan has a 5-inch height advantage, but Borralho is the one with the 4-inch reach advantage. I mean, Dan, I know this is your play of the week, right? Coming up here, so tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the Knights of Degen Fight Night Discord channel. I think it was like Sunday when the line was like -170.
Yeah.
So it had steamed a little bit, and then I think I looked at it Tuesday. It was up to -210. I'm seeing it now at like -250. You know, so money's coming in on Borralho quite a bit, and I think rightfully so. You know, he's very well rounded. I think in this fight, though, it's really going to be the grappling edge that's gonna lead him to victory here. You know, Petrosyan, you know, he's got some good striking, he's got some good takedown defense, but you know, nothing for me that I saw that I think that'll help him in the grappling department. Borralho is I mean, besides anything, I mean, the guy has probably the ugliest tattoos I've ever seen. So, you know, what does he have? Free spirit tattooed across his neck. So, you know, all the more power to you, brother.
No regrets. No regrets.
Yeah. Oh, is that it? Oh man, terrible. But no, I mean, I'm high on Borralho here. I have him again. I was able to catch the line at -170 earlier in the week. So I've actually got him parlayed with Trayshawn Gore for a couple of units. Those are 2 fights that I kind of circled when I first saw the card. But no, I think we're going to see Borralho come in here. Use his kickboxing to kind of set up his grappling. And I think once it hits the ground, it's good night, Irene. I really think there's a big differentiation here between the levels of grappling between these 2 guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, the grappling advantage here is going to be so massive for Borralho. I mean, from what I understand, he's been training with Damian Maia for like over 8 years, right? Like, it's almost like he's reincarnated his spirit. So this is such an interesting matchup, though, because, man, like, I look at a guy in Petrosyan in his previous fight in Gregory Rodriguez, and he's very tough, and he's got an incredibly good cardio. Like, this man, he just like pushes through, man. You know, he loves that leg kick where he chews that up. I think it'll be really tough to find that mark in this matchup, just given how elusive Borralho, fights. He kind of has a similar like karate style in a sense, which is kind of interesting from a Brazilian, right? Like, just his stance and the way he approaches the fight. But this is just so interesting, right? Because it's like Petrosyan has that get up game. You know, we saw that in Gregory Rodriguez. But the thing that concerns me the most that if he's trying to take that explosive get up game approach, I'm worried that Barala is going to snatch a neck because, he's so trained with that Brazilian jiu-jitsu and it's going to be there. Because, Petrosian's style, right? Like he grinds his opponent out, right? Like he may lose that first round, but I can almost guarantee you if this fight reaches the third round, that Petrosian's going to win that third round. Just given that grittiness that he brings to the table. It's just tough, man. Like on the feet, I think Petrosian has a striking advantage. I do. I think that he's got a little bit more power. Of course, he's got that massive volume. I mean, it's been a short sample size, but the dude is landing like over 7 strikes a minute in the UFC in 2 fights, I believe.
Yep.
So small sample size, but like this man is gonna let loose. Like he's gonna get in a groove and he's gonna land. Again, it's just a matter of that get up game. You look at the style of like the size, right? So Barali is going to have a 4 inches in reach, but Petrosian is going to have a few inches in height, like 4 or 5 inches in height. So like you've got to think where Petrosian is in that submissive position on the ground. Trying for Barali to lock up that body triangle, like to keep him controlled there, is not going to be easy. Like versus this type of big body. And Petrosian does have that explosiveness. Gosh, this is so interesting, man. Like I've been leaning Petrosian all week, and I really was looking forward to breaking down this fight because it could flip flop. But Matt, what do you have in this fight? Any good looks? Any good leans?
Yeah, I'm gonna need Jigga to create like a Mortal Kombat graphic here for me and Dan going head to head in this one because I'm high on this guy Petrosian. I mean, we saw him go toe to toe with Gregory Rodriguez, who's a dark horse in that division. We just saw what he did his last time out against a guy in Julian Marquez, who I was also high on there. But what shocked me the most about this one is the line, right? I mean, minus 145, okay, that's understandable, but getting steamed up to minus 225, just look at the sample size. In the last fight, Petrosian fought Gregory Rodriguez. He was plus 125 when that betting line closed. Whereas Caio Borralho, his last time out, he fought Gaji Omargadzhiev, right, in his UFC debut, and he was the underdog at plus 100. So to see him come back at minus 225 in this spot, he was very shocking. I know a lot of people are high on the kid. His grappling is fantastic. And, he was cruising in his last fight up until that illegal strike wound up getting him the decision. But, I think there's some things you could look at here. I mean, obviously, Caio Borralho, he's a national judo champ. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, so he has those distinct advantages when it comes to grappling. But this guy Petrosian, he is a national Muay Thai champ, and he's a master of Muay Thai in his country, Russia. And the one thing that stuck out to me was Petrosian's only been training MMA for 3 years, which is incredible to think about, beating a guy like Rodriguez with that little experience going on. But I think that the advantage on the feet is just as wide as the advantage Borralho has grappling. I think that what Petrosian does so well is, he keeps his distance. He does a great job of utilizing the leg kicks to control distance. And he's always at his striking range. It's always comfortable for him when he's trading. And like you said, he has that high volume. He lands over 2 times more volume on the feet than Borralho does. And I just think he's far more technical. I mean, Borralho, he's decent in the stand-up, but I've seen him get sloppy at times, even in this Contender Series fight. When he comes in rushing, that chin is pretty straight up. I think that there's a good chance Petrosian could catch him with something here. But, for me, this one comes down to the line. And I just don't see Borralho really dominating Petrosian on the ground because, like you mentioned, Kev, his get-up game is good. I mean, a guy like Gregory Rodriguez took him down, and he got right back up. And Rodriguez is one of the best, grapplers in the division. He's stronger than Borralho is. So, I think that's saying something there. But, I just think that Petrosian, if he could keep this one standing, control the distance, I really think he could pick apart Borralho here. And the fact where the line is sitting right now, it makes my job easier because now I know what to play. I'm going to play Petrosian at plus 190 here for all the value.
Yeah. And I mean, in Dan's defense, like that minus 170 line, I would think is like the threshold where it's like, okay, you can still get a decent amount of value. At minus 220, 230, that's really, really pushing it, man. Petrosian, he's so tough. He has that chin. Like, if you can survive 3 rounds versus Gregory Rodriguez, it definitely says something, right? I mean, there are times where Petrosian got clocked. And I think there are some fighters that if they took those type of shots, man, they probably would have been a little bit more compromised there. But, what I love about Petrosian is like the way he strikes. He does a really good job with his combinations of mixing in the kicks with the hands. He'll throw like a 1-2 with his hands to a kick. Where not a lot of fighters really show that diversity in striking. So, yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, Matt. Like on the feet, Petrosian, I think he has a massive advantage, right? Like both guys seem to be kind of one dimensional in their own right. The path is clear for Borralho, right? I mean, if he can take this down and keep it there, this is his fight to lose. But, I do worry, if he is able to do that in the first round and not finish the fight, maybe Petrosian takes over in the second and third round, because just the style that Borralho brings of, staying active on the ground, and, it takes energy, and you look at his physique, and I don't think we can all say that this man has a fantastic gas tank. I think the cardio does favor Petrosian in this spot. So, yeah, gonna be fun. I'm kind of leaning on the Petrosian side, like I said, Matt and Dan. But yeah, no, like again, in Dan's defense, that -170 line, I don't hate it for the Borralho side, but now we're talking where the line is currently at. And from a pure value perspective, I think Petrosian's the side.
Yeah, I think just a couple things to kind of add. I mean, we talked a lot about the Gregory Rodriguez fight, and like I rewatched that fight, and what I found that Rodriguez kind of abandoned the grappling pretty early on, when
as he tends to do.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he's got the credentials, but Rodriguez is a guy that we've seen he's kind of fallen in love with his striking. I mean, rightfully so, right? You saw his last fight against Marquez; he absolutely flatlined him. The guy is a tank. But I think in that, styles make fights, and I think I think if he would have came in with a more grappling heavy plan, I think probably would have been a different outcome. I think Borralho is going to come in a little bit smarter, a little bit more measured, and I think I really see Borralho as this guy that the UFC is going to try and build up. He's got the good-looking guy. He's he's young. He's got the tats. He's got the good record. I think, and again, just the fact that where he's sitting on this card right now, in his first fight in the UFC, it means that the UFC, sees something in this kid, right? I mean, I think he had 2 fights on the Contender Series within a span of like 3 weeks, right? And so, the guy knows, he should come in there and try to grapple him, and he should. I think he's going to have success. I have an early finish. I don't know what the Borralho sub prop is, but I'm probably going to be hammering that come fight night. I just think that the Rodriguez fight is a tough fight to measure kind of this matchup on, just because Rodriguez didn't fight the way that he should have fought. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that. I think for me, where it comes down to is, where the line currently sits at, right, -225. Being that it's Borralho's second UFC fight, I think there's still a lot we've yet to see from him to really justify that line, where it currently is. So, it's just I can't get out of my mind that he was the underdog +100 in his last fight, right, against a way lower tier kickboxer than Petrosian is. So it's just interesting. I think that this is, obviously, I think they put it in a spot for a reason, like you said, Dan. It's Borralho's second co-main in 2 UFC fights, so. Like you said, they're definitely trying to build this kid up. He is charismatic in his own right, but the UFC always has plans, but they not always come out to fruition like they did last week with Pereira knocking out Strickland. That was like drawn up to a T. That was perfect for them. But like I said, this one comes down to line for me, value.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that I find so interesting, because with this MMA handicapping, you got to look in between the lines, right? Why is Borralho's finishing prop of a KO +240 and the submission is +330? You'd think Borralho's submission has got to be more likely than a KO, right?
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, right? I mean, Petrosian has that striking advantage, and Borralho's way to finish this fight is utilizing his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And
that's them playing into the Rodriguez results a little bit too much, truth be told. I think that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I didn't know that. So that's weird.
Yeah. And I wanted to pop in and mention the over 1.5 -160. I really like, man. I mean, Petrosian isn't really one to go guns blazing. Like he just kind of picks his shots and, stays active. I think that if there is a finish early, it comes from the Borralho side. But man, I mean, you're telling me that Petrosian can't survive 7.5 minutes with that submission. I think it's possible. I also think that with this type of stylistic matchup, the way you have the grappler versus striker, the split decision line could be live here. It's 7-1. It's just one of those matchups, right, where you could see a fight that's incredibly hard to judge, where, you know, Baraglio has some of that control time. Petrosian's, you know, has a massive advantage landing on the feet. You know, Petrosian, I believe, is 20-1 by split. Baraglio is 11-1 by split. Not a terrible look, man. I mean, both, you know, Petrosian is incredibly tough. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that he is not getting knocked out in this fight. If he gets finished, it's by submission. But that's a massive if he's able to survive that submission, this could go a distance. But, you know, one thing that I did notice about Baraglio is, like, the way he fights. I mean, he could be there to be hit. You know, this will be interesting, man. But I do believe that over 1.5 is money. I really do. I don't.
Be a sweaty one.
Yeah, I don't foresee I just don't foresee an early finish, man. You know, I could see a finish, but early on, I just don't see it. And they're giving us that -160 over 1.5. Love it. The split decision prop could flirt with it if the card's going well. But yeah, no, this is a really fun matchup. And, you know, whoever prevails from this fight is, I don't want to say is on the map, but is definitely on the trajectory, of course, to that top 15.
Yeah. One line that I actually really like for this fight is Baraglio double chance, submission or decision, and that's at +110.
Okay.
Like you said, I don't think he's going to be knocking out Petrosian. You know, but you know, I think submission is the most likely outcome. But, you know, again, we could see something stretch out to a decision. So I like that double chance at the plus odds.
You may even be able to play both sides there, right? Take Baraglio submission decision and take Petrosian knockout decision, and make out plus money either way. Just hoping, you know, obviously Petrosian's not going to get the submission, I don't think, right? I mean, obviously Yuri is going to come to mind whenever I say that, you know, from now until forever. But the Baraglio side, like you guys said, the knockout's not really too likely. And to lend your point some credit, Kev, about the over 1.5, I mean, Baraglio wasn't able to get the finishes last time out. In one of his 2 Contender Series fights, he wasn't able as well. And, you know, I think the guy he knocked down the Contender Series was kind of like a sacrificial lamb to get him that UFC chance after being denied after his win on the Contender Series first time around. But, you know, you guys both make good points. This is going to be a fun one. Dan, me and you going head-to-head on this one, though.
Let's do it.
So if you guys are ready, I mean, we got the battle of the Rafaels coming up, right? Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev surprisingly -210, dos Anjos +180. This fight was scheduled to take place, you know, 2 times before. It's finally going to take place, hopefully, fingers crossed. But to make note of it, the line has come down. Fiziev on those early lines was -250 when those fights were scheduled. And like I said, now it's down to -210. You know, obviously RDA, tons of 5-round experience, and Fiziev is in his first 5-rounder here. Kev, if you got anything to add, please start us off here.
Yeah, man. Gosh, you know, Fiziev, he's very exciting to watch. I mean, the way he lands his kicks, the way he just has this very, very unique style of striking, man. It's very untraditional. And he packs the punch, man. Like, if he lands that one shot on the button, you're going out. Versus a guy in dos Anjos, you know, there's 2 sides to this coin, right? One, he's 37 years old. You know, he's up there in his career. You know, of course, he's coming off a pretty significant win over Moicano not too long ago. But, man, this is very, very tough, man. You know, dos Anjos, I think he's going to have that grappling advantage, right? Like, there's a clear path for dos Anjos here. He's got to grapple. He's got to somehow control and take this to the mat, which I think he might be able to do. This is tough, man. This is tough. You know, like, I'm not on a side yet. You know, Fiziev is dangerous, but dos Anjos, man, you can never count out dos Anjos. You know, like, former champion in the UFC, man. I mean, I believe he even defended his belt versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone. But, you know, he's a legend of the sport, right? I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. Like, give the man his respect. You know, we're not going to sit here and say Fiziev's just going to knock out Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, come on. Dos Anjos is an absolute legend, man. I mean, he's brought so much entertainment and joy to this fight, or to this promotion. But, you know, I think with Fiziev's style, the way he loves to utilize that kick, I think that'll be there for dos Anjos to catch. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, catching that kick, take him down. I firmly believe that if Fiziev stays on the feet, or excuse me, if dos Anjos stays on the feet here for 25 minutes, oof, it just feel like it's just a matter of time before Fiziev finds the button. But in your defense, Matt, Fiziev has never been, he's never been to a 5-round fight. I think that we've seen in his previous fights that he does tend to fade in that 3rd round. To see him in a 4th or 5th round, I don't know. Dos Anjos could, break away here, right? I mean, we could totally see a spot where Fiziev takes round 1, round 2, and Dos Anjos just breaks away if he can stay alive, right? I think it is worth noting that Fiziev did have COVID, 3 months ago. So that could alter the gas tank just a little bit more. It is technically his 13th mixed martial arts fight. Like, I understand what he's brought to the table in the UFC, but again, the experience advantage is massively on the RDA side. This is going to be a fun one, boys. I'd love for Dos Anjos to come out on top and maybe get one more shot at the belt, but it's going to be tough for him to overcome this task. Dan, I know you're flirting with that RDA side potentially. What do you got for us? What are your thoughts?
Oh, not potentially, man. I'm locked in. Yeah, I've got a couple units on Dos Anjos. I think for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, I think he's at the weight class that he should be right now. He was fighting at 170 for a bit, and he had some success, but ultimately he was just getting overpowered by like bigger wrestlers. Naturally, the guy is a 155er, so it's good to see him. So that's one, and also, we know sort of his style, right? The guy has tons and tons of pressure. He's not going to gas out over 5 rounds. He's going to be the same in that 5th round as he is in the 1st. And Fiziev, to your point, like, he does fade. We saw him fade in that 3rd round in the Bobby Green fight. And I think a guy like Dos Anjos is really going to be able to mix everything up a little bit more than Bobby Green. So I think there's always that risk of Fiziev just completely turning lights off Dos Anjos, Jeremy Stevens style for sure, which is like one of my favorite knockouts of all time. Like, that was like the uppercut from hell, if you guys remember that one. Yep. But no, I mean, Dos Anjos, I think he's trying to make one last run. I don't think he'll kind of get there, but I think Fiziev is a lot of hype behind him. The guy's had some incredible performances, but you look at kind of who he's fought, right? A lot of striking dominant fighters, right? I mean, he hasn't really fought a guy with, I guess, the well-roundedness of a Dos Anjos. Everyone he's fought has really been more from a striking perspective, and that's his bread and butter. So it's like, why? Dos Anjos is a smart fighter. He is not gonna play with his hands. We saw that when he won the belt against Anthony Pettis, right? The guy was just takedown after takedown after takedown, nonstop. And so I think, it'll be a bit of a sweat the first couple rounds, but I think if this gets into the round 3, 4, 5, we're going to see Dos Anjos pull away. And I actually like RDA decision here. I think there's a chance that Fiziev can maybe, if he gasses himself out towards later rounds, can maybe give up his back. But I think, all likeliness, I think Dos Anjos wants this W. I think a W here is going to set him up for a top 5 fight potentially in the division. So I think he might play it safe a little bit if he sees himself getting ahead of the scorecards. But I have Dos Anjos, like I said, money line straight up. I locked it in this morning at plus 180. I'll probably sprinkle something on his decision prop as well. But I think disrespect towards RDA, man. I really think he's a side here.
Yeah, and I think this is just great matchmaking, right? I mean, you have someone in RDA who is trying to get back into that top 5. You have someone in Fiziev who's moving up the ladder, step by step, getting the job done. And, I mentioned this to you, Kev, the other day about how, this being Fiziev's first 5-round fight, we could see very low volume out of him in those early rounds, knowing that he has gas tank issues, knowing that he has to preserve himself to last the 5 full rounds against someone like RDA, who, as we all know, he's been there, I believe, 7 of his last 8 fights in the UFC have all been 5-round affairs. And, just a little note, his last 2 opponents of RDA were both on 5-day short notice, Moisano and Paul Felder before that. Not taking much into that, just wanted to point that one out. And we did see him absolutely dominate Moisano in his last fight out just a few months ago, and he looked great. I thought from start to finish he brought it, but something I took away from it was there came a point in that fight where Moisano disrespected RDA's striking on the feet. and he kind of just, you know, moved forward. He landed some good shots of his own. I mean, I believe he won that 5th round on the judges' scorecards. Moisano did, you know, just by basically walking forward, being like, you know, screw you, I'm coming for it. I'm going to hit you with what I got. And he did land, right? I mean, he found success in that 5th round, but he got beat up for a good 4.5 rounds, though. And I just think Fiziev, you know, he's explosive. To counter your point, Kev, about the leg kicks being there, I just think, you know, he throws those kicks so fast. RDA is going to have the fastest, you know, twitch muscles to catch them, because those kicks are at lightning speed. I don't think it's a real threat of being caught to be taken down. I actually have that in my notes too. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because he's a dynamic striker. And I think that RDA needs to kind of, you know, I think there's going to be a fine line that we're going to see it early in the fight, whether or not Fiziev respects RDA's striking. And I think if he doesn't, Fiziev's going to take this one home. I think if Dos Anjos can land something good that will further set up his takedowns coming forward, you know, it's going to be a long night for Fiziev. But one thing I noticed in his last fight, RDA, was he was standing very flat-footed, a lot more flat-footed than I remember him being in prior fights. And, you know, he didn't have much head movement either. He kind of looked his part, you know, with the injuries, being 37 years old. You know, that stuff will catch up to you. And I think we saw a little bit of it in his last fight. Obviously, he was able to still land those takedowns and absolutely dominate from top position. And if he's able to get this one to the mat, like you both said, such a distinct advantage there, right? I mean, he'll be able to hold Fiziev there for all 5 rounds and just beat him to a pulp, maybe even land a submission if, you know, Fiziev tries getting reckless with his get-ups. But it's a tough one to call, I think, because Fiziev, I think, if, you know, RDA doesn't set up a takedown, he throws a labored takedown, I think Fiziev has a number of, you know, counters that he could throw to catch him coming in. But you know, you're kind of landing on those good shots to land against someone like RDA, who I don't think he's been dropped in 30 straight fights since that Jeremy Stevens bout, which is, you know, saying something in itself considering who he's fought over that time span. The fact that he fought up at welterweight during that time span, fighting those bigger guys and still didn't get knocked down. But it's a, like I said, it's a good fight, good matchmaking. I don't really have a side here. I did mention to you, Kev, that I think a split decision could be pretty live here, you know, depending on how these judges see it, just based off the low volume that we could see off Fiziev in the early rounds, preserving himself. Because grappler versus striker, as you mentioned before, Kev, you know, it depends on where these judges are looking. Obviously, they've been leaning towards the strikers lately, but with the gas tank of RDA compared to Fiziev, you can see some of these rounds turn sloppy real fast, and you know, those judges' scorecards could be up in the air.
Yeah, yeah, and with Fiziev's style, like when he throws those kicks, I mean, it's all like everything that he has in the tank when he throws that. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't necessarily land or per se throw out the most volume, but the way he impactfully throws out those strikes, it takes a lot of energy. I think it's worth noting that Fiziev does have a 95% takedown defense. Now, I don't think that he's fought, you know, a grappler of RDA's caliber by any means. But, you know, I think, and one of you guys mentioned this, you know, the IQ of RDA is top notch, you know, just what, you know, the experience he's had in the UFC, you know, he knows what Fiziev is going to bring to the table. You know, it's not like RDA is coming in on short notice. You know, this fight was canceled twice in the past. So I feel as though RDA has most definitely done his homework on Fiziev and what Fiziev is going to bring here. But man, oh gosh, this is going to be fun, boys. I think that if that round 1, round 2 Fiziev KO stays in the clear and RDA stays safe, I think this cruises to a decision, right? I mean, RDA isn't really going to pose much of a finishing ability. And you know, Fiziev is going to fade late. We already know this. So, yeah, this is that split decision prop could potentially be there. You know, again, if Fiziev doesn't finish early, this is going to a decision.
RDA decision at +350.
It's good odds. It's really good odds. And Kev, so basically what you're saying is Fiziev by late 5th round submission. I think, it's like the scenario too, right?
You know, we've been flirting with those late round 3, round 4, round 5 finishes, but in this spot, you know, RDA, he's so durable, man. And I'm trying to remember when he fought Moicano, was that the fight of Moicano when the fight was finished, like he was all busted up.
He shoved
the ref off. Yeah, the cut man. Well, the cut man came over. He's like trying to wipe his blood, and he's like moved to the side. I mean, he is just gushed.
Yeah, you got to remember though, with that 5th round, that Moicano fight, like Dos Anjos was essentially pitying him, right? You could tell that he took his foot off the gas thing just because he knew it was in the bag. I think he could have gotten a finish at any point. Like RDA was just a nice guy in that fight, truth be told. Because of that, people are saying, well, kind of won the 5th round. I'm like, yeah, he did, but if you were actually watching the fight, like, he wasn't going all out. Like, he was just kind of, because Moicano wasn't going to quit in there. Like, the guy can take a beating, you know? So if you don't pull his lights out, he's going to be there the whole time. So I think a bit of an asterisk there. The other thing, too, with the Dos Anjos not been dropped in, like, 30 fights, you know, kind of a bit of an asterisk, because, like, I think when he lost to Alvarez, it was like a standing KO, you know?
A standing KO, yeah. He didn't get knocked down, though. He never got me down.
He's definitely out on his feet, though. That's for sure.
It's like the line from Raging Bull. You didn't get me down.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, one thing I wanted to note, Fiziev absorbs over 5.5 strikes per minute. So, like, when he like swings those legs, right? I mean, he leaves so many openings. So, you know, you said it great, Matt. Like the striking of RDA, I don't think we can just overlook. You know, I think he's going to have his spots to land. Yeah, this is one of those where I would hate to see a veteran legend in RDA get flatlined in this spot. Don't think it'll happen, but there's a slight possibility that it could be there.
Yeah, I think obviously that's like Fiziev's path to victory. I just want to make note too. I believe Fiziev been training with Movsar Evloev for this fight too. So obviously getting good work in when it comes to grappling. Like you mentioned, that 95% takedown defense. So if Fiziev stuffs these takedowns, and, you know, RDA, like I mentioned before, he looked very flat-footed. He looked his age in the striking department his last time out. It could lend itself to Fiziev by finish. So it's one of those fights. I don't have a strong lean on it. I could see it going either way. It's like we're only going to know once we know, right? It's a tough one, but I don't blame you, Dan, for grabbing that plus 180 money on Dos Anjos where it currently sits. I think Fiziev hasn't shown enough yet, similar to the Barallo thought there, that he hasn't shown enough yet to be that minus 210 favorite. And, you know, going to look for ways to play this one. Perhaps I'll take a split decision prop and then back that up with Fiziev by finish or knockout. So I really have nothing else to play here other than those two.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Yeah. No, I think we broke down this card awesome, man. I can't wait to hop onto this prelim on the Twitter Spaces on Saturday. I think there's a lot of really good spots, a lot of plus money there. And man, we're just gonna make it rain now that we've solidified, you know, Dan on the show, which we're super excited about. Man, I just know that we're gonna fuck up these bookies, man. Excuse my French. You know, I think that, you know, the three of us together, we've got this energy, we've got this knowledge of the sport. You know, I love that, Dan, you know, because, you know, I started watching UFC back in 2007, 2008. So from what I understand, I mean, you've had your skin in the game a little bit longer. So I love that you have that deep knowledge of UFC, and I just can't wait, man. You know, it's one of those things where we look back and, you know, 12 months from now where we're going to sit at, you know, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun journey.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I first got into UFC. I think it was when the UFC first came to Montreal. It was the rematch for GSP Matt Serra. That was like
wow.
That was the first card that I'd ever seen. I was like hooked since then. You know what I mean? So a lot, man. The game has changed a lot since then. That's for sure. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, as always, guys, we'll be on the Twitter Spaces Saturday. I think, you know, like I mentioned before earlier when we started this thing off, we're back at the Apex. We're gonna get some more finishes in that smaller octagon. And we have some names on this card that could get it done. I mean, Kennedy and Zechukwu, the guy has fucking hammers for fist. He's going against Carl Roberson. You got David Onama finally got put back on the card. You got Trayshawn Gore, someone we've seen with this knockout power. So we're in for some fireworks, guys. And can't wait to break down these prelims with you all on Saturday at 11 a.m. at our Twitter at Fight Night KOD. If you guys have any parting messages to send before we close this thing up, shoot them off. If not, let me know and I'll wrap it up.
Man, it's such a tease, like bringing up the prelims, because I'm just so ready to just dive in and just go in with you guys with these fights, man. But we'll save that for Saturday. That Kennedy and Njoku line, baby, 9-inch reach advantage. But hey, we'll save that for another time. Let's go, boys.
Let's do it.